Let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Isabel, very good morning to you.
Morning. I'm loving the background, but I just have one question. Why is it snowing in the room?
Yes, Peter Hitchens spotted that as well. Listen, it's taken a long time for us to get all this together. You have no idea of the trauma that we've had to go through.
Well, I love it. I absolutely love it. I also want Keir Starmer's ow, 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 as my kind of, maybe as my alarm clock.
Yes, it would definitely wake you up. I mean, this is genuinely what he sounded like yesterday. Have a listen. I mean, has there ever been a less functioning, grown-up politician in the world than this man? He's incredibly awful, isn't he?
You know that there's only one solution over this festive season, and that is to have a few drinks, in brackets, drink responsibly, and try to laugh about the state of things, because it is so breathtakingly awful.
Yes.
If we don't go down that route of having some extra sausage rolls and Yule log and whatever, we're all going to be in a state of utter despair.
I know.
So I'm trying to be in a good mood and find some of it funny. But I mean, the list of things that we've got to talk about today, it's just enough to make you despair.
It really is. I'm not sure where we start, really, because, I mean, let's pass on the water bills and stuff. Shall we start with the Turkish sort of, heroin boss who can't go back to Turkey, even though he's been there 8 times on holiday, because it might be dangerous for him?
Let's do that. But I do want to have one other comment, which is about this ski trip, because I heard the interview that you did earlier with a teacher. And there is one dimension to this that I don't think has been reported on today, which is that this ski trip to Switzerland for these kids that behaved absolutely appallingly, and the totally negligent teacher who, as you say, after 7 years, what the hell, has finally been given their marching orders, that would have been a taxpayer-funded ski trip. And let me tell you, ski trips to Switzerland don't come cheap.
No.
So to pile insult on insult, not only was this a grossly negligent thing in which parents were let down because the children were not properly supervised, it also cost you and me and every other taxpayer a very, very substantial sum. And I'll bet you anything that teacher who was suspended was being paid through that period. So what an absolute disgrace.
Sure, and I bet there'll be plenty of other trips similarly organised by similar schools to try and sort of, show these kids a good time. And it's obviously a really, really stupid idea. I mean, why would you take a load of kids who have been expelled or, kicked out of various schools for bad behaviour? It can't be managed. Why would you take them on a foreign trip, for heaven's sake?
What could possibly go wrong? Well, I think we've seen what did go wrong. So a Turkish crime boss, just to fill people in if they haven't followed the story, this guy is like a prolific heroin dealer and hardened criminal who has time and again been up against our justice system. We want to be able to send him back from whence he came, i.e. Turkey, where plenty of people have nice holidays every year. But he is pleading and has pleaded that he can't go back because his life will be in danger, etc., blah, blah, blah. And at the heart of his claim is his right to a family life. This is their family life with the woman that he systematically cheated on and even went so far as to have a fake marriage with another woman. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, can you? You
really can't.
He's allowed to stay in the UK because of his right to a family life and the disruption that it would cause, and, his children, and, let's all get our violins out. Not.
No.
This is to do with the UN Refugee Council and, you guessed it, the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, which, for reasons best known to the last government, we are still part of. Well, it's perfectly possible for an incoming government that is serious about getting a grip of the sorry state of this country to announce on day one that they are beginning the process of leaving both of those organisations, and that's what I think we need to do.
Exactly right. I also think we need to look at immigration judges. I mean, they're referred to in this piece in the Telegraph as backing his claim. Now, this is a guy, as you say, who's repeatedly cheated on his wife. They call him, apparently his lawyers say, he's a reformed character. He's actually got a Turkish passport. He actually went back to Turkey to apply for a Turkish passport and got it. So the idea that he's somehow concerned about about his safety in his own country is clearly nonsensical. Basically, they're saying they rejected an appeal by the Home Office against him remaining in the UK, despite the fact that they said that he was probably a danger to the people here. And, you know, it seems to me that immigration judges need to be, I think, much better supervised. And I know that people will sort of shiver slightly when I say that, but I wonder if there's something we can do with these judges where we have some kind of league table that they operate under, so that, you know, if they continue to refuse the Home Office's request to deport people, that they get removed. If they just keep doing it, what's the point of having them there? Do
you think we could deport them from their own benches?
I'd like to see that, honestly, yeah.
Could we have a recall petition system, you know, like you have for MPs?
Yeah.
You know, might there be a system whereby there are some consequences? Because it does honestly appear as if judges are, in a sense, above, if not the letter of the law, they're above the... they don't seem to have much accountability, no. I think that's what I'm saying. And the discretion that they're allowed to exercise over the kind of punishments that are meted out is something that's concerned me for a while, because it leads to such manifest injustice. You know, when you've got one person who's sentenced to literally years in prison for some minor infringement during the so-called riots by far-right thugs in the summer, and then you've got paedophiles and other absolutely horrific characters who have caused actual, literal, provable, demonstrable harm to children who are not given any custodial sentence. So I think, in a sense, judges have too much leeway. They are far too political, and you know, it's a dangerous area. You know, we don't want to go down a system of kind of, you know, the politicisation from the government of judges. But at the same time, it feels as if there should be an element of accountability, doesn't it?
It does, because we're always told that, oh, well, so-and-so couldn't be deported because his custodial sentence was not long enough to guarantee that his deportation would happen when he comes out. This guy went to prison for 16 years. He was thought to, at one time, supply 90% of Britain's heroin. So he's a massive, massive drug dealer. You know, this is not in any way to diminish other people's crimes or anything like that. But he's an absolute cut-and-dried case, it seems to me, for deportation. And the fact that he hasn't been able to be sent out of the country is staggering, really.
It's a complete and utter joke. And I wonder how many other countries would be tying themselves in knots over this kind of thing. Just get them on a plane, deport them, and take what the consequences are. And if they come back, you just keep putting them on a plane. And by the way, I bet he's made some quite tasty proceeds of crime there. Let's use his proceeds of crime for the public good. And I do not give a monkeys if he's a reformed character. There's plenty of characters in this country that didn't need to be reformed. So let's just get rid of him. I don't care about his family life. He is a drug dealer.
Exactly.
Criminal, and he's a liar, and he is a bad...
I mean, you know, perhaps if he was concerned about his safety and the safety of his family, he shouldn't have become the kind of, you know, Turkish version of Scarface. You know, then maybe he might have had a reason to expect to have a decent life. But, you know, he's a bad guy. Get rid of him.
Yeah, no more debate required.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Sharia law, because this was a bit of a shocker this morning when I picked up the Times to find that about 100,000 Islamic marriages apparently are believed to have taken place in this country, many of which are not officially registered with the civil authorities. I find this absolutely incredible. Talk about two-tier justice. We've now got, you know, two-tier religious courts.
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for ages, and it's always been a scandal, in my view. You can't have parallel justice systems for different religions. You know, either you are signed up to our country's system, or you're not. And if you're not signed up to it, well, then don't live here. Sorry. You know, I just don't recognise this as should be a thing at all. I don't really know very much about what goes on in these Sharia courts. You know, the marriages is one thing, but I think that there are other dimensions to this about, you know, more in terms of the kind of retribution and the criminal side of things. And I think quite literally a veil of secrecy is drawn over this. And often through these courts, I think that they likely disadvantage women in a way that our own system doesn't.
Yes.
Whatever the detail of it, in a sense, doesn't really matter. The principle is, do you have in your country a whole load of different legal systems? And is that any kind of way to operate a country with a shared identity and shared set of values? Quite obviously, it isn't. You know, if you can have a Sharia court, then, as one of our callers said earlier, you know, think I'm just going to have, you know, Mike Graham's law. Let's have Isabel Oakeshott's courts. And I tell you, Mike would be ones you wouldn't mess with. So we just need to have one system. This is at the heart of what has gone so wrong in our country, is that we've lost our sense of identity. Who are we and what are our rules? You don't get to make up your own set of rules if you live here, except unfortunately at this point you do.
Exactly right. I mean, one of the things that really staggered me was the investigation discovered that polygamy is so normalised apparently now in this country that there's an app that you can get for Muslims in England and Wales to create Islamic wills, and you've got a nice little handy drop-down menu to count how many wives you've got. 1 to 4 apparently is the preferred number. I don't know if it goes +4 or +5 or whatever it is, but I mean, you just think to yourself, what's happened to Britain? I'm sorry.
So you've left me staggered by that one. I wasn't aware of the polygamy dimension, and I'm sure there's loads of other things we're not aware of. Well, what's happened to us is that we've been far too accommodating. That's what happened. And unfortunately, with the best, for reasons that were good reasons, we are trying to be tolerant. We are trying to be, perish the thought, inclusive. The result has been disastrous, because a country cannot hold together if it doesn't have a set of shared values and a clear identity. And other countries do this so much better. They're very clear about who they are, where they're going, and what works and what is allowed in their country and what isn't. And that is what leads to a high-functioning society with high levels of patriotism, actually. Whereas in this country, it's somehow considered a source of shame to fly the Union Jack. The British flag is seen as some kind of embarrassment. And we allow people to parade the streets with a bunch of flags which have nothing to do with our country or our values. And we should just never tolerate this stuff. You know, it isn't good for people overall to be overly tolerant.
No, it really isn't, because it leads to actually encouraging people to be tolerant about intolerant people, who then become so intolerant that they take over the intolerant business of tolerance. And so we all get very confused. Let me finish up with transgender women and single-sex spaces, because Keir Starmer once again appears to have flip-flopped on a policy that he said he would absolutely stand by. He said it was very important to protect female-only spaces when he had a debate with Rishi Sunak during the election campaign. It looks like now Labour's going to go back on that, and they're going to allow certain transgender women into certain female-only spaces.
Right, brilliant. Well, as a woman, I don't want to see trans people in my spaces. And I don't think that this is that complicated. I think the trans lobby has been incredibly effective and incredibly shrill on this stuff, but they seem to expect the vast majority of not trans people to accommodate them. And I just don't feel that that is equitable. I think it raises safety issues. We know it does. And the whole thing has just gone way, way too far. But I'm not surprised that this Labour government is pandering to it, because that's what they do, isn't it?
I know. It is absolutely incredible. That's the other story this morning about Rachel Reeves. She's gone back on a plan to review the pensions business, which she said that she was going to do just a few weeks ago. And she's now put a halt to the review that she wants to do. And apparently we're now being told by pensions experts that this is going to cost millions and millions of people millions and millions of pounds, because their retirement is going to make it, their retirement when they get to it is going to make them more worse off than they thought they were going to be.
Well, with each week that goes by, this Labour government manages to alienate and infuriate a different group of people. And
it's quite a talent, isn't it?
I mean, in some ways, I'm actually I'm sorry for our country, and I'm sorry for all of us, because each and every one of us is directly impacted by the utter shambles. But I actually think it'd be almost more dangerous if they were a little bit okay, this government, because then we might survive. But they seem to be determined to be so dreadful that they are guaranteed to be booted out at the next election.
Right.
The only tragedy is that that is so far away, and how much damage are they going to do to our country before we can get our country back again?
Yeah, I know. It's a big question, and we'll have to see how it all goes. Great to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Have a good Christmas if I don't see you, but hopefully I will.